Hi everyone, and welcome to my 6 p.m. Wednesday's talk. Today I'll be talking to you about affirmations, and this is a really interesting topic because basically it concerns us all. Typically, whenever we use the word affirmation, it's always to think about something that's positive. Now, there's a theory behind positive or affirmation. And this self-affirmation really started in 1988 in terms of the science behind it or the theory behind it. And then it grew into positive affirmations and positive psychology, which is something that we're very familiar with. So you have a lot of positive psychology books out there, maybe you're familiar with them. But I really wanted to touch on something else really today, and that's that basically sometimes we wake up in the morning and we might be filled with different concerns that we might have. Maybe we are stressed because of things happening in our life that might be very difficult for us, and it's very difficult really in those moments to think positively. But what we don't realize is that what's happening here is that we're starting the day with an idea and maybe a series of ideas. And then these series of ideas that are not very constructive, we can also call them technically negative self-talk, begins to spiral. And we might find ourselves thinking about them all day long without really realizing and paying attention to what we're actually doing. And that becomes, in a way, a form of negative self-talk or a negative affirmation. So usually, technically, we are going to use the word affirmation to signify something constructive or something positive. But here, just today, I'm just highlighting the idea that basically affirmations can also be negative because we might not necessarily be aware that we're actually doing them. And that really sets a certain tone for our day. I mean, I know that this happens to me. I sometimes wake up in the morning and wondering, what's going to happen on the particular day. Maybe things didn't work out the way that I wanted them to, especially during these times. We're always confronted with uncertainties, maybe with changes in our lives. Maybe we need to change our schedule. Maybe suddenly we felt like traveling somewhere, and then that's not going to happen because of various reasons. Or maybe I'm really looking forward to something that I feel is important to achieve, and things didn't necessarily go my way, or I'm feeling anxious about things. So this can sometimes happen. I might wake up and have these negative self-talks go through my mind that sometimes, if I'm not mindful of them, they can turn into these negative affirmations all day long. And at the end of the day, what I don't realize is I haven't been feeling very well. Maybe my day didn't really go as I would have liked it to, and I didn't really relate or associate the start of my day and my mindset at the time and the way that I'm actually feeling. Of course, there's so many different components. We're not just on our own, and there's so many aspects to our life. But here I'm just focusing more on if we become just a little bit more mindful of the way that we think from the moment we wake up in the morning, then we can begin to really take more control over the way we want to steer our mindset. And that's where affirmations come in. So what are these affirmations? Affirmations typically have to do with our self-concept or our self-identity, the way that we look at ourselves, and that are based on the morals that we have about what's important to us and how we view ourselves in the world, and what we want to be perhaps achieving, or how we perceive ourselves in that respect. And what's useful about affirmations is that they're very powerful. A lot of people will say, yeah, this is something that I've heard a lot about, or I see maybe in some talks, and people talk about just being positive, but I've tried it and it hasn't really worked. Actually, there's a lot of science behind it, And we know that there's changes in our brain activity, especially in the frontal area of the brain, whenever we are actually thinking in constructive ways or in productive ways, or even when we repeat something positive about ourselves. And sometimes you might hear, why don't you just stand in front of the mirror and say something positive to yourself? Now, these things that you say to yourself that might feel very weird at first, standing in front of the mirror and just saying something wonderful about yourself. But we know from research that when you do that, it definitely has a near immediate effect on your physiology and on your emotional state. And just by repeating it several times, can have a really calming effect or an improved effect, as opposed to not doing it at all. And positive affirmations typically doesn't have to be saying something so extreme, let's say as this is perfect, or I'm ecstatic, or everything is going to be excellent. It can just be something that is an in between, moderate, or such as I'm going to take things one step at a time. I'm learning. Things are going to get better. Actually, the most important thing is to really find the statements that match you, that you feel resonates with you. Because the most important thing is to try to be as authentic as possible. So it's not about, if you're thinking something negative about yourself, it's not just about just shifting that negative thought into just a positive one in terms of like all or nothing type of thinking. But you can just find something that is that's in between, something that is let's say a more what's the word I'm trying to find, a word that is more constructive, let's put it like that. So even though my day didn't go as planned, something better is going to come my way, or I can do this. This is a difficult time, but I'm going to get through it. So you can find the words that actually suit you and match you. And one good way of doing that is just by taking a moment to take a pen and paper, or to use the notes in your tab, in your phone, or on your laptop, and just to write a few of those statements that match you, that you find most suitable for you, that will resonate. And it can apply for different areas of your life. So it can have to do with your health, perhaps with the way that you take care of yourself, whether you do activities, if you do sports or not. We know that, for instance, positive affirmations can actually help someone to activate a new behavior. So let's say there's a wish, or you wish to do some sports and you wish to be a bit more active, but it just never happens, and then you just keep putting yourself down because it never happens. You can just begin by telling yourself that I'm going to go for a walk today. I can go for a walk today, and I'm going to go for a walk today. I can do it. I've taken this decision to go and walk for 30 minutes, and that's going to make me feel good, and I can do it. So it can be something as simple as that. And again, we know from research that when you keep repeating a constructive, positive affirmation, that can actually activate the intention to actually go and do it. So if you've never done it before, you might be surprised as you find yourself engaging in that activity that you've repeated to yourself, because you're setting that intention. And that can be really, really powerful. As opposed to repeating the negative self-talks, or what I was calling the negative affirmations, that you are saying to yourself without even realizing it, and without realizing the effect that thought and that statement and that dialogue that you're having inside of you is having, and how it's manifesting in your daily life. So you end up not doing the things, and that becomes, in a way, a self-fulfilling prophecy. And so you get stuck in that vicious cycle again and again. So the good news is that positive self-talk is a proven, scientifically valid approach that has physiological changes that take place almost immediately. It's not something that takes days or weeks or months. That's the good news, is that if I'm going to allow myself to be open-minded to the situations that I'm in, and look for and want to look for a solution. I think that's an important one, is to want to find a solution to my situation. Then you'll have the right ingredients to set it up, and after that it's just the effort. There's just a minimum requirement of effort to write down a few statements that make sense to you, to end up doing it. And that's the reason why, as you might have noticed in my posts, every Monday I'm going to be posting a reminder, an okay kind of reminder, just to remind yourself of these affirmations. So for example, the one on Monday was about I feel strong in my heart and clear in my mind. And you can always come up with something that makes sense to you and that you relate to. It doesn't have to be I'm going to copy or I'm going to say something that doesn't really meet or I relate to. You can also say it in your own way. You can find your own words that make sense to you. And we know that by positive affirmations and being more mindful of the self-talk that's happening anyway, whether we like it or not, as long as we are conscious and we're functional, we're actually going to have an inner dialogue that's just going to be there. So what kind of inner dialogue do you want to have? How do you want to steer that dialogue that's taking place inside of you, and that dialogue that's probably being influenced by so many different factors in your life? So since that's happening anyway, so how about just taking, you become the decision maker as opposed to the person who is simply influenced by the events and the learnings and the experiences that you have had in your life. So we can become leaders of our life just by becoming aware that I have a mind that has a capacity to think, that is speaking, and I am speaking to myself. Internally, there's these talks that are going to be useful and helpful and constructive for me, and then there's going to be these talks that are not really going to be helpful. Actually, there's a psychologist an author who wrote several books. Maybe you've heard of her, Louise Hay, who wrote a book. It was primarily based on her own experience, how our thoughts can influence our health. And we know that. I mean, she's a great author. I think if you're not familiar with her books, it can be a really nice one to read with a lot of examples there that can be quite practical for you to use. Of course, it's not the only book. I mean, there are many others. And the point here is that you can take charge of your life just through the way that you think, no matter what situation you might find yourself in. And of course, we live in a time in the world that there's so much going on. We're perhaps in different parts of the world and faced with so many different obstacles, and so much commotion is going on in our lives. We feel have changed in many ways from what we've been used to, that sometimes it's difficult to know what tomorrow will bring. So in many respects, we can choose how we're actually going to navigate through these challenges that we're faced with. Either we're going to be nourishing and feeding our fears and our doubts and perhaps the negative self-talk, so therefore the negative affirmations, or we're actually going to take this as an opportunity. Say, maybe, for example, I don't know what tomorrow brings, but right now I know that I can find myself into a calm place, or right now I know that I am in good health, or right now I know that I can influence my health to be better or to get better. So it's always about finding and being actively involved in the intention to want to live a more peaceful life within. So it's how to be more in peace within myself, because obviously there's so many things around me that I don't control and I can't control. So things are happening. So affirmation is a way to build your capacity to be resilient, and to be able to become adaptive and more flexible. And that means that whenever you are confronted by unfortunate, maybe difficult experiences that come your way, you might be surprised as how you will start to handle them differently. And how? Simply because of exercising your mind in such a way. Now, of course, there are other techniques that can be really helpful, such as mindfulness practices that one can do, or learning how to meditate, or you have techniques of visualization that can be very helpful. Now, these are all techniques that require intention. It requires a person to take the time to take a step back and to learn how to do these practices in a very effective way. So, again, all this in line with the intention of setting and developing your ability to constructively apply positive affirmations in your life. So this is something that is useful for all of us. We might experience different challenges. We might experience anxiety. We might experience depression. We might be confronted with different difficulties in our life. And so positive affirmations are something that can be really handy and useful. Of course, they don't replace a therapy sometimes, and they don't replace a treatment intervention, but they can be really handy in one's day-to-day life in dealing with difficult events, and offer ourselves a sense of control internally with ourselves, no matter what we're confronted with. So there. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. Next week, I'm going to be having a live talk with a sophrologist who is a psychiatric nurse in France. It's going to be an interesting conversation. She's a French speaker, so I'll be doing a bit of translation into English and French. Is going to be something different, something new, and it's a very interesting topic. So hope that you are all well. Hope that what I shared with you today was useful, and take care for now. Bye.